Everyone, welcome back to the next video. In this video I will show you how to cast shadows in ThreeJS. So let's get started. So firstly I will show you guys the output which I have. So here you can see I have one sphere and I am casting shadow of it on the plane. Now this is I'm not using any textures as such, just using the built-in shadow which we have in ThreeJS. So yeah, let's see how to do this. So first I have created a project using Vite. So you can just run this particular command. It will create an HTML, and I have selected the template of vanilla HTML, CSS and TypeScript, but you can choose whatever you feel like or use any other framework which you feel like. Then inside package.json, first I have installed this 3 dependency which is for ThreeJS, and this @type/3 which installs the types for TypeScript. Then inside index.html I have added this canvas of id canvas, style is position fixed, top left is 0 and outline is none. And here we have included a TypeScript file, so we are referencing one script inside our HTML of TypeScript. Then if you see my TypeScript file, these are all the imports for it, so if you want you can just copy paste all these imports. And I have also included orbit controls over here. So if you see, first we are getting hold of our canvas using document.getElement by id as HTML canvas element. Then I have created one scene. Then I have added some ambient light to our scene as well as directional light, because if we don't add ambient light or directional light, then our shadow won't be visible. And if you see, one more thing which I have done is that inside directional light I have added the cast shadow is equal to true. If you want, I'm not sure if we can do this for I think so we should be able to do this. Dot cast shadow is equal to true. So this is the important part, the cast shadow part. Whenever you want to show any kind of a shadow, the cast shadow should be equal to true for any kind of light. So here you can see. Okay, let's see if I just remove the directional light cast shadow. Okay, I can see some shadow for ambient light. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but it's not very clearly visible. So I think the directional light's cast shadow is much more important for our sphere. Okay, next I have created one mesh standard material which requires light, and here if you see I have just created one sphere mesh, and the sphere mesh cast shadow should be also equal to true. Then I have created one plane mesh. Okay, and the sphere is on top of the plane, so the plane should receive the shadow. That's why plane dot receive shadow should be equal to true. Plane should not cast shadow. Of course it can cast shadow, but in my case it should not, but it should receive shadow in my case, and sphere should cast the shadow. Then I have added both sphere and plane to our scene. Then I have just taken one the entire width and height of our screen. I have created one perspective camera, added it to our scene. Then I have just created this orbit controls to do mouse translation and rotation. Then here I have created one WebGL renderer. And another important part is, for your renderer you have to add shadow map dot enabled equal to true, otherwise again your shadows might not be visible. Then we are just setting size for our renderer. On resize we are just updating our camera as well as our renderer, and on double click we are just entering or exiting the full screen mode. Then I have created one clock, and inside tick we are just rendering our scene. This tick function is not really required. If you want you can just remove all this stuff, but make sure you move this renderer dot render outside somewhere over here, otherwise you won't be able to see your screen. Okay, so let me repeat it one more time. The important thing which you have to do is, for your renderer you have to enable the shadow map. Okay, the second thing which you have to do is what should receive the shadow. In my case the plane should receive the shadow, that's why plane dot receive shadow equal to true. What should cast the shadow? Mesh should cast the shadow, as well as we have to enable the cast shadow for our light as well. So these are the 4 important things which you have to remember. Now there are few more things which I want to show it to you. So here inside directional light You can add more things as well, like how exactly should be the shadow map size, width, height, how far should be the shadow camera, top, right, bottom, left, as well as the radius of the shadow. Be careful with this width and height, because for large renderer this might cause problems. So I'll quickly show it to you. So I will just remove this. I'll go to my directional light and I'll just paste it over here, do a Control S, and here you can see, like to a noob like me, like I don't understand 3D much. For me, the previous shadow which I shown as well as the current shadow which I'm showing, it's more or less the same for me. So it might not make difference to some people, but for other who are really into 3D designing and modeling, they can like immediately figure out whether the shadow is perfect or not. So yeah, you will have to make your own choices on how exactly you want it. Like I'm not really much into it, so I'll just comment it this for now. Okay, let me uncomment it. There is one more thing which I want to show. There is a different type of shadow map type as well. So we can assign this shadow map type of PCF soft shadow map. By default it is just PCF shadow map, and the radius of directional light does not work with PCF shadow map. Okay, so soft shadow map I mean. So what I'll do is I'll just show it to you once. Do Control X, and inside our renderer I can do something like, Control X. I'll just paste it over here. Okay, I need to add this import. I'll copy it, I'll scroll up and I'll add it over here. Okay, now if you see the output, it looks again much better. Again, you have to make your own choices whether you want all this stuff or not. So yeah, I will just comment this out for now, because there are a few more things which I want to show it to you. Okay, I'll just comment this out, and for directional light as well I'll comment all this stuff out. I'll do Control S, and here you can see this is our output. So here you can see like the shadow is not that sharp, but yeah, I think for me it is fine. Now the second part. Okay, so in the second part what I have done is that instead of directional light I have taken spotlight. Now only point light, directional light and spotlight support shadow, so you will have to use either one of this. Of course you can use ambient light as well, but that doesn't really support shadow. You can use other lights in conjunction with point light, directional light and spotlight. So here the code is exactly the same, so these are all the imports in case if you want it. But instead of directional light I am just use cast shadow, spotlight. Rest everything is same. So here you can see cast shadow for our mesh, and receive shadow enabled for our renderer as well. So here you can see I have just enabled the spotlight over here, and if I now show you the output, here you can see this is the output. Here you can see one more big shadow. So yeah, you will have to make your choices, like how exactly you want the shadow to be. Even I am not really good at this. So yeah, this is how the output looks like for directional shadow, for spotlight shadow, sorry. So the next thing is using point light. So I'll quickly show you the output. So this is how the output looks like for point light. So again the same thing, I have just replaced spotlight with point light, and these are all the properties which you can use. You can again play around with all these properties and make the right choices for your app.